Namaskar, this is my 33rd lecture, and today I'm going to make it a little bit more complex with jihad and gender identity. But first, let's see the two types of jihad, and then in the next lecture I'm going to talk about another type of jihad that is very different. Remember, we talked about jihad al-Qawal, and which is preaching of the tongue, which is what happened in the first stages when the traders and the peers came in Africa. But then when that didn't work, and we'll come back to this, they resort to jihad al-Nafs, which is the jihad of the soul, the forcible conversion. What is the ultimate aim? To transfer the ungoverned land into Darul Arab to Darul Islam. But there is an in-between, which is Darul Arab, Darul Sulk. It's a treaty. Muslims cannot stay as minorities according to this doctrine under non-Muslim. For a while there is a covenant and treaty, but ultimate aim is the establishment of the order Darul Islam. And within this we have to understand the transaction of women. Again, marriage, kinship structure, and I talked about this, transaction of women from one tribe to another for the purpose of establishment kinship structure. So when they were the others living in zongas as minorities, that's one way of entering into civil society. But today I'm going to talk about something else, and I want you to go back and watch my videos on the gender development according to Freud. Let me go through it a little so that I can come back and relate it to the two different types of jihad I talked about. According to Freud, human development happens as a result of a libido traveling through different body parts. What is a libido? It's a psychical energy or sexual energy or life force. And it's a search for an absolute pleasure, unlimited pleasure, unbounded pleasure, pleasure forever. First, it's housed in the oral region, and all pleasure is obtained from the oral region through sucking. So at a time comes when the baby is weaned and no longer a boundary happens with that unlimited pleasure of sucking. Even here there is a concept of the other in relation to whom the pleasure is happening, because always we desire the other. And I talked about all of this in my lecture on psychoanalytic feminism. So there is a boundary, the baby is weaned. Then the anal stage, all pleasure is from the passing of the feces. And then through toilet training, again, that unlimited pleasure, which is a fantasy. We can't go on having pleasure, but that is the fantasy. With the toilet training, a boundary happens. And then the pleasure is obtained through masturbation, which is the genital stage. Now, in all these stages, there is no gender identity differentiation. It's diffused. And everyone desires everyone else. There is no heterosexuality, homosexuality. It's all polymorphous. And here, what Freud says, we enter into a castration complex. What is a castration complex? That the organ of pleasure, the phallus, the male phallus, will be cut off if he doesn't give up masturbation and getting unlimited pleasure. See, here there was boundary, here there is also another boundary. So what the little boy does, he sublimates his desire for the phallic mother, the absolute mother, which I talked about earlier, and that unlimited pleasure, and he makes a boundary and he consolidates the self. Whenever we have one identity, we have to give up the other identity, because unbounded pleasure will give us no pleasure at all. So he consolidates his masculine identity and the feminine identity, and the search for that, desire for the phallic mother goes into the unconscious, and he adopts his male identity. For the female, as I said before, it's much more complex. She discovers that she's already castrated because she doesn't have the organ of pleasure, which is the phallus, the lingam. And so a little of that, the clitoris is left. And in her mind, according to Freud, it's because she has done something wrong, father has cut it off. It comes from the mythologies of sin, the woman's sin, from the Abrahamic mythologies. So, and she also realizes that the mother doesn't have the phallus, how can she give it to me? The phallic mother is a mother in fantasy. So she has two realizations. So she has no organ of pleasure. She can never get pleasure. So what she does is she runs to father to get the phallus, accepts his beating, rape, etc. In Freud, there is no such thing as rape, because that's a woman's desire to get the phallus in her body. Then father doesn't give her. She runs to mother. Mother doesn't have it. She doesn't give it. She runs back and forth till she settles for her biological destiny, which is substituting the original unlimited desire for the phallus to a desire for baby from father or father substitute. That original desire goes into the unconscious. So the unconscious desire of the female is the desire for the phallus, the organ of unlimited pleasure, because we only desire what we do not have. And the conscious desire is the baby. So it's a substituted desire. Now, but her identity is not as strong and consolidated as the masculine identity. It's flip-flopping. She goes to father, goes to mother, no one gives her, she somehow settles, but that desire for the phallus haunts her conscious mind. It's the desire for the phallic mother, unlimited, also haunts the conscious mind of the male. That's why no one has any consolidated identity. All identities are more or less ambivalent. But for the woman, it's more, because she running back and forth, and she's haunted by that lack of phallus, according to Freud. Now we can apply this to the jihads we talked about. From what our research shows is that during this time, the jihad al-Qual, people's identities, and I'll talk later about this in another video, people's identities were like ambivalent. They were going back and forth from the indigenous pagan identity. They had all the rituals, but they also would do Hajj and accepted the turban, the Muslim way of dressing, and namaz and so forth. So it's an ambivalent identity. And from there, people like Don Fodio in Hausaland, or what is now Nigeria, they took up the jihad by sword to establish that strong, consolidated Islamic identity. So here we go from a feminine, there are many people who are both pagans, indigenous, as well as a little bit of the Islamic identity, but that was not acceptable. So the jihad of the soul is this very strong, phallocentric masculine identity. And that's the psychoanalytic explanation of these two. I'll go further into this. Please subscribe, like, comment, and donate if you can, so that we can continuing to go on doing these videos. And please go over my previous lectures so that they're all in a series and they make sense. Only you go one after another. Thank you. Namaskar.